What's going on, guys? This is week 1 of the 6-week video series that I'm going to be doing. I'm calling it a reintroduction, and the reason I'm calling it that is to reintroduce myself, because so many people just think, I'm all about grief, and I understand why. But the truth is, when I'm working with my clients, we work on so much more than that, right? I want to talk a little bit about those other things. So every week for 6 weeks, we'll be touching base on a different topic. Real quick. After my last video where I kind of talked about this video series, I got a couple messages like, hey, you're saying clients. What does that mean? What do you do? So I thought you just had a page. I'm an author, coach, and speaker. So when I say clients, I work one-on-one with clients. You can be one. It's via phone or video chat. That's what I mean, okay? Week 2 is going to be self-esteem and self-worth to give you a little idea of what's coming, okay? But week 1, we're going to focus on grief and healing, okay? So the end of my second book ends with a piece entitled Dear Jessica. I was getting on an airplane, headed home from visiting a friend. And before the plane took off, I checked my email. I received an email, from a woman who was terminally ill. And she messaged me telling me, first of all, how much my page meant to her. And second of all, she asked me a series of questions so that she could relay the answers to her husband. Of all the work I've done since I started doing this work, that moment hit me more than anything else. Bad enough I was coming down with the flu, and I'm a baby, so it was the man flu. But man, did that email touch me. And I immediately got out my phone. Well, I was on my phone, but you know what I mean. And I started typing her back an email in the note section of my phone. And I'm not too proud to admit when I cried. I think I was holding the tears back, but they came out. The woman next to me might have got a little scared. But that moment really hit me, right? Leading up to my response to her, I mentioned in the book that I want to take a bullhorn and I want to go on the top of a building and I want to shout or preach or whatever, talk about everything that I feel I know about grief and healing. And the reason I want to do that, and the reason I started doing what I do now, is because I realized at some point after my wife died that society as a whole is ignorant to grief and healing. Now, if you're watching this and you're getting defensive and you're like, I'm not ignorant to grief and healing, I didn't say you were. I said society as a whole is ignorant to grief and healing, right? So one of the things I realized is that this page, in essence, is my bullhorn. And while I might not reach as many people as I want to reach, it's my bullhorn. It might not go as far as I want it to go, but it still goes somewhere. So I'm going to touch base on a couple of the topics that I would shout from the top of that building, okay? I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here because I don't want to make this video 80 hours long. I mean, it would take me 80 hours to tell you everything I think about grief and healing. But we're going to go down a couple things, and I'm not going to look at notes. So let's see how good my memory bank is, okay? One of the first things I would shout is something I learned about a month after my wife passed. When I went to hospice bereavement, and it was a group setting, and I told the guy who ran it, I said, I don't want to move on. I said, I don't want to move on. And he said, John, we don't move on. We move forward, right? I didn't coin that. He didn't coin that. Must have been around for a while, I learned. You probably heard that before. But you know how many people haven't heard that before? I had it. He told me. Put a page about that in my first book. You've probably seen some amazing TED Talks about that, right? My friend Kelly did one. But society doesn't know that. But they should. They should know that we don't move on, we move forward. It might only be one word, but damn is that word impactful. Okay, what else would we talk about? I did coin this one. I would talk about how we can grieve as we move forward, and we can move forward as we grieve. I'm going to say that one more time. We can grieve as we move forward, and we can move forward as we grieve. Let me just stop for 1 second. When I say move forward, some of y'all are like, I don't want to date. I don't want to date. I'm not talking about dating. Dating can be a part of it, but I'm not talking about dating. We move forward with every step that we take. We move forward with every breath that we take. Okay? If you think about it, one of the things I talk about is that after the loss of a spouse, right? Or a child, or significant, profound loss, it's never fully going away. It changes, it evolves, but in some form or another, we are going to grieve the rest of our life. I'm not saying we're going to cry every day for the rest of our life. No, I didn't say that. In one form or another, we're going to miss them, grieve them, and definitely love them every day for the rest of our life. So we have no choice but to grieve as we move forward. We have no choice but to move forward as we grieve. The inability for society to understand that those two things can walk hand in hand and actually have to walk hand in hand boggles my mind. It used to anger me. It doesn't even anger me anymore. Well, you think this is anger, it's just passion. It doesn't anger me anymore. It exasperates me now. It exasperates me now. What else would we talk about? We talk about the grief in the man in the coffee shop, that video I did before, where when they die, the old us kind of goes with them. And we are a stranger to ourselves in this whole new world that we don't know what the hell we're doing in. And when I talk about how we get to know ourselves again in the process of rebuilding, right? That's something I work with clients on all the time. We talk about the evolution of the pain. You saw that video before too, probably, right? About how it changes over time, how it looks different over time. We talk about that, or I would talk about that with my bullhorn from the top of the building. I talk about something else I mentioned in that video, right? Which is at a certain point, not right away. I'm talking maybe like 2-3 years out, maybe. It's different for everyone. Life circumstance has a huge impact on what our grief looks like, right? Because when my life is going well, I miss Michelle, but it's kind of in my bones. It's kind of that, oh, I wish you were here, babe. And when my life looks like a dumpster fire, that's when the excruciating intensity comes back. That's when the severe pain comes back. And I'm crying up to the sky. Why did you leave me? How am I supposed to do this myself? We would talk about the grief of our children, right? What to expect, although just as we're unique, they're unique, so their grief will be unique. Kind of what to expect. And my thoughts about how we grieve in front of our children. Because sometimes people think that they should not cry at all, that they should not show any emotion. If that's what you think, that's perfectly fine. I believe that showing some form of grief, some form of emotion, I'm not saying every day, okay? But some form of it, sometimes, gives them the unspoken okay to grieve, to cry, to miss, to continue to love. That's just my thought. We would talk about the 365-day benchmark and how it's crap. Day 366 don't look a whole lot different. Okay? We would talk about, with that said though, let me counterpoint that. We would talk about how year 2 does look different. It's a different type of grief for a lot of people. Okay? How it continues to change and evolve over time. I would give you guys the Tokyo analogy that I use with my clients and at workshops and in speeches. that kind of puts that all into perspective, okay? We would talk about dating and how it's perfectly fine if you never want to date again, but how society thinks that once you fall in love again, you're fine, you're all good. They don't understand the guilt and the fear that come with that. They don't understand the confusion of how can I love two people at once. They don't understand how brave it is to put yourself back out there. And you're brave too if you don't want to put yourself back out there. Okay? We would talk about that. What else would we talk about? My memory's not that good. Let me see. Give me 1 second, y'all. Didn't want to have to do this, but I have to. We would talk about the different levels of happiness, right? Because I'm gonna piss some people off right now. The whole you choose happiness to a certain degree, maybe, but there are different levels of happiness. We would talk about the rebuild, the absolute bravery and resilience of rebuilding your life from the ashes of everything that you knew. We would talk about that. We would talk about the struggle of the rebuild. How 3 years out, maybe your life isn't what you want still, and you tried so hard to rebuild, and you're exhausted. We would talk about how life can be beautiful again, because for so many of you, you think that's absolutely impossible. I thought that was absolutely impossible. Every person who came before you thought that that was absolutely impossible. I'm just going to be real blunt here. Like, there's not many people who are 2 days out, 6 weeks out, who have a lot of hope, who think life can be beautiful again. Look to us as your hope. Look to the people who have come before you as your hope. Right? We would talk about all that, and I'm not going to look at my list anymore, even though there's a million things I probably forgot. We would talk about so much more. We would talk about how just as our love was unique, as will be our grief and our healing, we'll talk about judgment, right? Because some of y'all are not grieving as you need to grieve or want to grieve because of judgment of others. What are you doing? If you can't grieve your own way because you're worried about what your cousin Samantha is going to say, how are you going to find healing your own way? How are you eventually going to live your own way? We would talk about that, right? We would talk about the fact that you have got to empower yourself enough to know that you have walked through hell and maybe are still walking through it. And you have to stop caring so much about what other people think, okay? We would talk about survive first, exist second, live third, and how 3.5 years later, I fall back sometimes. I'm in the live again phase, but sometimes I go to survive. Sometimes I go to exist. Sometimes I go and do all 3 phases in one day. We would talk about how you can feel happy and sad all at once, right? Society doesn't understand that. We would talk about how you can feel cheated and thankful all at once. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for the fact that Michelle and I got back together as adults. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for the fact that we got those last 5 years together, right? Tremendous amount. But I feel cheated still. We should have had 60 more beautiful years, and we didn't. I feel both. But society doesn't really understand that. A lot of you guys get that. But But society as a whole doesn't. They'll look at something I post like, oh, he's not even thankful. No, I am. In that moment, I feel cheated. You can feel both happy and sad. You can feel both cheated and thankful. We would talk about all of that stuff. And I would try to explain to society how complex grief and healing are, because they do not understand, right? That's a few things I would talk about with my bullhorn from the top of the building, right? I don't have a bullhorn though, so my page is my bullhorn. Tell me some of the things that you guys want to hear about. Tell me some of the things that I missed, because I don't like looking at my notes as I do this, right? Because I'm going to start doing more videos. And they're going to be videos specific to a certain topic, okay? So comment, tell me what you think. Tell me if I hit any topics that you want to hear about, that resonated. Tell me what else you want to hear about. Next week will be self-esteem and self-worth. I'm going to explain how I define self-esteem and self-worth. I don't care what the book definition is. I'm going to explain how I define it, okay? Because I don't go by the book definition of anything with my coaching. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. If you're a widowed person and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm not going to watch that, you should watch it. If you're not a widowed person and you follow my page and you think, well, he only talks to widowed people, no, you should watch it. Self-esteem and self-worth are absolutely vital to every human in so much of what we do, okay? So watch next week. I'm gonna go to bed. Bye.